Well, if you clicked on this video, then I suggest that you're pursuing financial freedom or trying to escape the rat race or living paycheck to paycheck. And whichever the case may be, there's one thing that we need to know, and that is the fact that building wealth is not easy. However, in this video, we'll be sharing 5 habits that multi-millionaires and billionaires use to stay ahead of the average people in our economies. But before we go into the 5 habits, I want us to have a very sincere exercise, and that is to take a very short pause and then ask ourselves, if we were to wake up in the morning in the body of any millionaire out there or any billionaire out there. In my case, I would love to wake up in Warren Buffett's body. What would be the things that we are likely to do in the very first 5 hours of the day? Now, if your pause is over, then I might share my thoughts with you first and then be sincere to yourself to narrate everything that you thought about in this short pause. Also, for me, I would like to wake up once again in Warren Buffett's body. And the first thing that I'm likely to do is to purchase the latest Lamborghini Aventador SVJ. But the question is this what Warren Buffett would do? If that is not what he's likely to do, then it means that we have habits or we are programmed in such a way and in a manner that is contrary to whatever we aspire to become in the future. And that is the reason why there is a need for us to sit down, reflect, and then associate ourselves with the things that are necessary for us to go on and then pursue and then subsequently attain our financial goals. So this is what the morning routine of Warren Buffett actually looks like. He wakes up, he goes on to, shower and do everything. He goes on to have his breakfast. And the first thing he does is to open the channel CNBC. And the reason why he's opening CNBC is to update himself with what happened in Wall Street and what is happening currently on the stock market. So that helps him to make an informed decision in his capacity as CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. In a like manner, when Bill Gates wakes up, he goes on to exercise, he reads for 1 hour, and then eventually go out to have breakfast and then go about his activity. So if you're to sit down and consider all these things, there's one thing that runs through all of them. The success story can only be written if you associate yourself with productive stuff that delivers value to people, and then in exchange of that value, people tend to pay you for it. So Warren Buffett in this case is the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. He invests people's money, but in order for him to be very, very effective in what he does, he has to put in so much effort. And that is exactly what makes him unique, and that is exactly what makes him successful at the end of the year. And that brings us to the first point, which is desire. Now, Napoleon Hill believes that in order for us to be successful in life, in order for us to become, wealthy, after interviewing hundreds of millionaires, he concludes that desire is the single most important thing that we all need to have in order for us to become successful. And he goes on to say that any desire at all is not enough for you to reach your goals. Instead, you need to have a strong desire backed with actions and a faith that would eventually drive you towards the subsequent attainment of that goal. So you need to fuel your mind, you need to convince your paradigm and convince your subconscious mind to believe that irrespective of the challenges that you're going through, irrespective of the predicaments, the tempest, and any challenge that is likely to pop up in the near future, you'll still sail through and eventually become successful at the end of the day. If you were to go on to ask any millionaire out there or all the successful athletes and everyone out there, they will tell you that there were times that they were very, very distressed, times that were very, very hard for them to sail through. However, with a right mindset and with a strong desire, but with actions, they were able to sail through all the tempest. And now they've gone on to achieve their goals, not because they wished or they had a desire to achieve them, but simply because they fueled these desire up and they ensured that they stayed disciplined enough to attain that desire at the end of the day. The second principle that successful people tend to use to stay ahead is the principle of applied faith. So Napoleon Hill believes that having a desire alone is not enough. You need to back that desire up with applied faith. And this is what he says. Anytime that you have a goal, you need to convince yourself beyond reasonable doubt. Now, there are several people out there that would seek to, talk you out of it. Try as much as possible to convince you not to go on to pursue those goals. Sometimes it's not because they hate you or they're trying to stop you. It is simply because they really care about you. For example, anytime that you set a goal so high above your limits, family and friends are likely to draw your attention to what is likely to happen. For example, if it is that you have to sacrifice food in order for you to reach there, they're likely to caution you and to trigger your conscious mind into realizing that there are several risks associated with the goal that you've set. It doesn't mean in any way that they are trying to stop you or they are trying to stand in between you and your success story. What they are trying to do is only help you. However, sometimes you need to block all these things out. Discipline yourself to listen to just you. Power yourself up with the power of your self conscious mind and try as much as possible to delude yourself into believing that, come what may, no matter the stress or the sacrifices that you're likely to make, you'll still go on and become successful at the end of the day. This is the principle of applied faith as proposed by Napoleon Hill. Now, this brings us to the third point, which is the mastermind theory. The mastermind theory simply says that anytime that two minds come together, a third mind is born. So what rich people tend to do is that they leverage on the skill set, they leverage on the education, they leverage on the talent and the exposure of people in order to build wealth. It's not enough for you to do everything on your own. The one thing that poor people tend to do all the time is that they tend to build things on their own. It will take you so much time and so much effort. Instead, what you can do is that you can leverage other people's experience and their talents in order to reach that goal that you want to pursue. For example, when I started this YouTube channel, I didn't know anything about editing. I didn't know anything about shooting, adding B-rolls, scripting, and anything. What I did instead was I went to Upwork and Fiverr. And so I did outsource my video editing process to people. But recently I started and I felt like, I should also gain some level of experience and some level of skills when it comes to video editing. I wouldn't always have to wait for an editor to finish my video before I can post. I need to also receive that skill set. I need to also learn how to edit in order to fast track the levels and the time taken for me to record and post videos. So that is what you can do. Initially, starting out and building wealth, you may have to fall on the experience and the expertise of people. So for example, rich people tend to fall on the advice of financial analysts, accountants, solicitors, and all the people out there, the professionals that can help them to reach their goals. It's not enough for you to just stand on your own and do everything on your own. Mind you, it is better to have someone with the experience because it saves you the time and the resources that you're likely to lose when pursuing that goal. This brings us to the fourth point, which is education or personal development. Sometimes when we think about investment, we tend to think about, investment in the stock market or buying crypto or in real estate or everything. But Warren Buffett says that the best investment that you can make is in yourself. Every single rich person out there leverages education. They try as much as possible to expose themselves to new information, new stuff, new skill sets, new trainings, and everything that is likely to push them or to take them a step closer to the attainment of their goal. So this is what you might also want to do. You can listen to podcasts, you can buy books and then read them. Several books out there would help you and would give you so much experience that several years of actually going out to action your plans wouldn't give you. It is okay to also leverage on the intelligence of other people when pursuing your goals. And that is one thing that rich people tend to do so much. They leverage on the intelligence of other people, and that helps them to build a dream and to achieve the goals that they set themselves out to achieve. Lastly, what really happens is that rich people tend to be more risk loving as opposed to poor people. Poor people generally are risk averse in that they shy away from the risk. But the truth is, the more risk loving you are, the more likely you are to succeed in life. So in other words, the more likely you are to fail, the more likely you are to succeed. Now, mind you, sometimes people think, failure is the opposite of success. But I tell you the truth, failure is actually a composite of success. In order for you to become successful in life, you would have to fail at some point. So Ali Abdal goes on to say that instead of approaching failure entirely as something that is bad, you should actually have an open mind and then see failure as an opportunity for you to try something new. And that is what changed my paradigm. Every single time that I fail in life, I learn from it and I go on to do even more. And that helps me to pursue several other ventures. For example, I tried out Amazon FBA, and the truth is it didn't work out for the very first few months that I started. However, through the failure and everything and the knowledge, the expertise and the experience that I gained through the process of failing, it helped me subsequently to pick the right stock and to pick the right products that eventually were profitable. And then it led me to also becoming successful in the end. What you need to know is that failure would actually propel you or take you a step closer to the attainment of that goal. And that is what rich people tend to know. They tend to take all the risk, knowing very well that it is possible for them to achieve their goals through the expertise and the experience that they gain through those tough and difficult times, provided they do not give up in the end altogether. So this is it. You need to get in the right frame of mind. Try as much as possible and convince yourself beyond reasonable doubt. And use these habits, use these attitudes of the top 1% in the pursuit of your goals. And I believe in you, and I know that you'll become successful at the end of the day. Thank you. See you in the next video.